Hey, Cozy Gloves here. I am wearing a hat, and today we're going to be going over S layer. We're going to be taking a peek into the parameters page on the main page. So we have 4 parameter pages: main, effects, envelope, and external. We're going to be taking a look at the main. And on the main page, we have the ability to change some basic behaviors of S layer. So each one of these, we notice that we have these windows here with these sliders on them. And each one of these controls a parameter as specified at the top for a sample. So we can have up to 8 samples. So for example, let's just call this top layer the first layer. So we have the first layer. This is our first sample. And this sample one, by dragging around, we're able to select a different sample from the sample map. So for example, this is sample 48 on the sample map. This is sample, whatever that was, 74 on the sample map. We're able to mess with the start delay of the first sample. We're able to mess with the pitch, the panning, and the volume, so forth. And so for each row, it is for that particular sample. It's pretty straightforward. And let's go ahead and just talk about this first one. So this is the sample selection thing. Sample selection index. I don't know what you want to call it. And what happens is when we drag the slider up and down, we're able to select different samples from the sample map. So for example, we have these various samples selected from our sample map in here, right? So, okay, that's really cool. But there are some cool things we can do with this. If we hit random, we're able to randomize it. So if I hit some notes, and you notice here that we have these randomization buttons for all of these various parameters that we're able to alter and change. If I have this orange button on next to it, that links it to the global randomize button. So anything that's got this orange button will randomize when I hit this randomize button. So when I hit it, it will only randomize this one because it's the only one that's got the orange button. But if I randomize a couple others, you see I'm able to do randomization in a very controlled manner. Let's say that I want to be a little more specific, but I still want to be able to take advantage of the samples I'm selecting, but randomly. Well, I can actually set a maximum and minimum for the things in here. So I can say, oh, let the minimum be 48 and the maximum be 73. So in this case, it would look at our sample map and only select samples from 48 and 73. And I'm also able to check this by dragging this slider up, and I'm like, oh, look at that. 73 is the max and 48 is the minimum. So as I randomize this now you notice here that this top guy is not changing at all. You might be going, what's made him impervious? Well, if I double click, he becomes unimpervious. I'm able to randomize him. And also another thing to note, when you hit the global randomize button, it gives you a preview of the sound. If you hit the local for that parameter, the local randomize button, it will not preview the sound. It will just randomize it for you. So if I double click one, it will freeze it so that I can no longer randomize it. So if you stumble across one that you like, you can double click it and still use the randomization features. So very capable of being directionally random. Sort of an interesting concept. So you see these sliders are mirrored for all the others. So we're able to do this for any of these parameter boxes. If we come over here, we have the start and delay and a quantize button. So this start time is really, I like to think of it as an offset instead. So if we open up something else, such as a kick, and then go ahead and open it. So basically, the samples will play from the beginning, right? But we're able to say, no, start here instead. Instead of starting here in the sample, start here, or maybe start over here, or start over here. You know, you're able to do that in S layer by simply changing the start parameter. So each one of these layers has this. Now, if we go over to, sometimes you will have silence in your sample because this offset will be so far back in the sample that it'll be where there's like no audio, or very little. So let's just take a look at that. So if I solo this top layer here and play it, see we're getting farther back. And over here, it's silent because the offset's been pushed back to where there's nothing in the clip. But if we go over, so this could be a very powerful parameter to modulate and just do some really interesting things. But just so you know, that's what that does. We also have the ability to delay it. So if I hit it and put a delay, so in this case, I'm delaying it. And you can actually see that when I've hit the key by watching the sequencer tab down here start to work. And so you see it has put a delay. If you want this delay to be musically relevant, you're able to put this on, and this will quantize it to 16th notes. So it'll make sense with the tempo. And I mean, I've never really taken advantage of this to a large extent, but you may consider very small, minute changes. Maybe give it a really small thing just to adjust the attack or maybe you can figure out some sort of way to make the layers interact in a unusual syncopated way. Yeah, it depends on how crazy you want to get. So that's what the start and delay. I find the start to be or the offset, I like to call it the offset, is very, very handy dandy feature. We have pitch. We're able to pitch things up and down 2 octaves, as you can see, up 24. And we're able to quantize these in semitones by clicking the music button, the little music icon, the 8th notes or the 16th notes. They have 2 bars, so they're 16th notes. And we have pan. We're able to pan things left and right, which can be, yep, that's great. And again, you can double click all these values. So if you have a value that's not moving, then that's what's going on. Also, if something up here, sometimes this visualizer can give you a little clue as to maybe you have something muted or a weird start, delay, offset thing. This is a quite common thing, and I'll have to come in here and sort of check out like, hey, what's that weird behavior coming from? And usually one of these parameters has been set sort of funny. Okay, so that's the panning. And we also have volume. And you're able to get an extra 6 decibels of volume by clicking on this little 6 dB. So kind of a handy deal. And you can change the volume. And you notice they have a little range here already set for us. So you actually can't get to silence. But if we can make it so you could get to silence if you wanted. All right, cool. So that's what's going on there. Now you notice that we have these side parameters right here. So let's go ahead and start on this side. So we notice that I'm able to select inside these little sidebars here. And so you could select like, ooh, fancy, right? Let's do this. Cool. And what I'm able to do is with the sidebars selection, I'm able to, for example, mute. So these are generally toggle features. So I can mute, these samples. Maybe mute that one. And you see, oh, okay, interesting. And this delay, see the delay has been, or the offset has been pushed back. I'm calling it the delay offset. You know what I mean? I explained it. So the start time has been pushed back, and that's why there wasn't any noise for the samples that were playing. So that's what's going on there. And so I can double click, or not double click, but just click again and drag to unmute, basically just switch the state of the button. And we also have this ability to solo, and I can only have one thing on the solo, so I can't like add things to my solo group, but it can be very handy for isolating a behavior and just maybe a problem. And we also have the ability to mono things. Now, let's find a stereo sample here. So it's solo, and there we go. That one's stereo. And we go to mono, and we can toggle mono on and off. So right now it is stereo. Now it's mono. And you can hear that pretty clearly. Unless you have like a weird acoustic situation or you're listening over one speaker or whatever your deal is. But we just took it from stereo to mono. Okay, cool. Now, something to note about these behaviors. If I am in solo mode, it will turn up light blue. And you notice that if I go from solo mode to mono mode, it stays light blue. But let's say that you want to get to mono mode while still being able to hear all your other samples. Well, if you go to mute, it will take you out of mono mode. So we see that it's represented by dark blue. And now if we go to mono, we see that we'll still be able to hear everything else that's going on. So pretty cool. Okay, now we also notice that we have this little randomization button here. This randomization button is linked to the parameters on the side. So as you see, I'm able to individually randomize this. So this orange button is linked up with the mono because that's what I have selected. But if I go over to mute, you see it turns off. If I turn the mute one on and the mono one on, but you see if I go to solo, well, solo, I don't believe you can randomize unless I already had it on. Yeah, these are linked in weird ways. I don't ever really randomize solo. That'd be weird. So anyways, you can randomize your mute and your mono, and it's a much more useful feature, I feel, on this side. So if we come over here, we also have the ability to reverse samples. So I can, let's just reverse them. Like, ooh, fancy, right? So, okay, and we're able to randomize that if we desire. And so it just selectively reverses things. Pretty cool. We're able to go to speed. We'll come back to speed in just a sec. Let's go to phase. So this I really think should be called polarity because phase is related to time, but it basically does a polarity flip on your signal. So if it was positive, it's negative. If it's negative, it's positive. And that's all it does there. If you were to look at this inside a sample and just hit, let's see, normalize, reverse polarity, we can see it's just flipping the sample. So there is positive, and there's the same thing down there. So it's just flipping it. That's all that this does. It can be really powerful in a layer because it may change the way things sum together. So if you have phase issues, which maybe were the idea why they named it that, is that could resolve it. So if we were to just phase reverse a couple, So you'll often get very subtle changes from this as well, but sometimes you can get a quite drastic change that you might not expect. So just interesting things there, especially if your content is very similar. Okay, so let's go on to the speed. The speed is linked up to the BPM mode of S-Layer. So if we hit BPM mode, you'll notice that it actually locks the pitch, the start and delay. And if we go over to the effects, it also has lock icons next to grain and stretch. And the reason for this is it's now going to it's going to stretch our stuff, but keep it playing back or the same speed so that we can use like loops and tonal things that are relevant to our track. So we can do a lot of really cool things that way. We're able to, let's go ahead and solo 1. This is times 1 speed, times 2, and half. So a pretty interesting deal. You're able to unlink these if you desire. What happens is there's 2 stretch modes that go on with BPM mode. So in BPM mode, right now, it's just going to stretch it, the pitch, but keep it the same tempo. If you use the granular engine, which is back here, and we'll look at this when we talk about the effects parameters. But if I were to like turn this on for the layer we have soloed, and we can see that because this one's light blue, I'm able to set a grain size and set a speed of playback. And if we go into the main and mess with we can get some really wonky stuff. Yes. So yeah, we'll talk about this when we get here. I mean, it's not really that complicated, but that's what's going on there. So this is only relevant when the BPM mode is on. When it's off, there's no difference. So we have reverse phase. So yeah, just to recap, you're able to randomize these individually. So you could randomize your speed and reverse individually, but you have to have it selected when you hit the randomize button. We're able to selectively randomize things. This controls sample selection. This controls the offset, delay. We have pitch, pan, and volume. Hey, I did not know that. I did not know that. You can click and it will reset stuff. That is so handy dandy. I've been using this for a while too, and I've always kind of wondered, how do you do that? I've never accidentally clicked on one of those. If I'm ever clicking on it, it's usually to get to these settings. So that's interesting. You're always learning. If you have any questions, let me know. We'll talk about the modulation as a separate deal because this is all modulation stuff. Subscribe and have a blessed day.